Hey guys, I'm Sean Hammond with PremierGuitar.com, and we're at Winter NAMM 2014 at the Jim Dunlop booth. We've got Bob here who's going to tell us about a whole bunch of new pedals, and Tal's going to demo them for us.
This rig is set up for an amp that's kind of dirty, so
tell us what we're hearing it through, actually, since you brought that up.
The LNA, the VHT, and right now we got it set up. It's really a little crunchy. With some of these pedals, going to take it to the next level of crunch and overdrive. And starting with the Echoplex. The Echoplex, it's a front end of the Echoplex, which is kind of coveted by a lot of players that use the Echoplex, but found the warmth and magic of its preamp. So this is the Echoplex the EP101 front end, and it just adds a little bit of dynamic compression, not by really intentional design of the original, but just because it's an FET and the power supply and the way it moves. So anyway, it boosts up to 11 dB and adds just that little punch that retains a bit more sustain and gets it more articulating. Well, we like to call it just makes it easier to get around the neck.
Yeah.
So
Tal, can we actually hear that with everything bypassed first, and then hear the difference between the Echoplex and the bypass signal?
So here we go. Here's our dry signal.
fills in a lot of the gaps, and it also, being a player, you feel it.
Right, I was going to say, it's one of those effects that, it's not like everyone's like, oh, he's got an Echoplex on, but you feel it, and it enhances how you play. And
how the pick attack, how the note blooms after you hit it. It does all these things simultaneously. It's incredible.
It's magic sauce, is what it is.
It's, I guess, not sort of in the same category as like a compressor, but would you?
But it affects the high end and the low end, and the way if you were to looking at it from a compression standpoint, the ratio and how quickly it affects the sound, it's just kind of this strange recipe that happened to be awesome. So, it's like if you had a compressor with an EQ and you set it up a certain way with the FET circuit in it, you would probably want it to be exactly what this is by accident.
Cool.
So that's the Echoplex EP101, new for 2014. And moving to the Univibe, this is my recreation of the Univibe, but using FETs, and I can actually nail it down, make it a lot more production friendly and temperature solid, and all the great stuff that unfortunately makes each Univibe sound different. The old ones. This is a really solid design, but it also, I took the liberties of looking at my old one, which I think it sounds great, and really got the non-linearity of the modulation and the way the speed mod reacts with a different type of modulation that happens, and it actually changes the frequency response as well. I put that all in there, so one knob, even though you're turning one knob, you're actually turning like three different things at once, and it just really nails the Univibe sound. So
now, when you say comparing it to your old one, you're talking about like an original one way back in the day.
My 1968 baby that I've had since I bought it as a kid, 1972. And believe me, I didn't know what I had, but now that I have it, I realize, wow, dumb luck has it that I'm now reverse engineering this thing that I almost didn't know what to do with when I was a kid. Then I heard Hendrix and everything was over.
Right. Now, for guys who have been playing a while, and you guys have had a few different models of the Univibe over the years, and I think it went completely out of production for a while, right? There was a purple, cool-looking one with recessed knobs and stuff. How would you contrast this with those different versions you guys have had over the years?
That's a good question, and this actually, I think, is kind of like the homogenization of all of those with sonic-wise, and again, it's more stable, so it's not going to change the day-to-day, like the cadmium sulfide cells in the light bulb. It's a great old approach and very organic. And even though this is analog, that's analog too, but those parts tended to move around with humidity and temperature, where this is more stable. But as far as the sound, I think this is more of a utilitarian. People are going to find that this is really easy to use and they get where they want to go very quickly. And for me, I like it just because it's a small package as well.
Yeah.
So again, sonically, it compares to a lot of things. And then you compare it to the old purple one, the old silver one, and the Univibe stereo chorus. There's certain places where it sounds the same. It may be different depending on the speed knob. So once again, each one has a little different flavor, but this one, for the price point, it really nails it great.
Okay, and tell us the price point. Actually, good. I'm glad you brought that up.
I was very surprised at $139.95. So it's a great price that you can, set up 2 rigs, have a backup rig. It's not going to break the bank. You don't have to go around and spend $1,500 on an original. Also, the original takes up half your pedal board.
Speaking of prices, we forgot to ask on the Echoplex. Do you have a price for that yet?
Yeah, $119.95. So
cool.
Once again, 2 pedal boards, backup, really easy on the pocket, and you're really going to dig what it does. That little special sauce that a lot of people know about, but you have to have a big box in order to really recreate it.
Right.
So there it is.
All right, Tal, let's hear the Univibe.
And the Univibe also is true hardwire bypass, which I think I forgot to mention.
Cool. Can we hear one or two other settings?
Yeah, sure. The Vibe setting, which is what was on the original, that just gives you the delayed pitch version out, so you hear that just warble, and it's really cool when you speed it up.
C-Sig vibe.
The C-Sig vibe, exactly. So then, with the chorus, is different because then it adds the 2 and you get that cancellation and warble phase.
Cool.
So that's the Univibe.
How many dBs on the level? How much
Actually,
of a boost?
the level, I believe, goes to 3.5 dB. Not a lot, but just enough to give it a compensation for any, if you want to jump out in that passage. 3.5 dB is actually a decent number. If you get into more, then it just becomes like you're stepping on it and what's wrong? I don't know if I should say this, but the simplification of a great sounding fuzz. And all it is the drive and the volume with a tone control, which actually is a cool tone control. I really like the way it responds because you turn it down and it doesn't just cut the lows or boost the highs, but it kind of interacts, almost like that, like a knob that's attached to this big tone stack, and it really gives you a nice dynamic range of tones. So
is it similar to one of the previous Way Huge fuzz designs? Or?
Actually, no, and the simplicity of it really is a charm. I like it. The Tweaker's Delight, you go with a thing like the Swollen Pickle, but the Havalina is just a real short and sweet thing. The 3 knobs on the top, and yeah.
What style? Silicon, germanium?
Actually, it's a germanium system that he uses in a different way. I can't really equate it to a fuzz face or this or that. And he just uses a couple of germanium transistors being driven, and then with some non-linearization around it for little distortion points and clip points. But it's just a really smooth fuzz, which is what I like too. And it can get very legato. And well, why don't we?
Let's hear it. All right, so we're turning the tone way down.
It doesn't quite, when you turn the tone down, it doesn't take away a lot of that nice mid-meat in the highs, but it just sculpts things, it gets things bigger. So the tone control, again, is not one thing that, everything's gone, everything's too much, this is the only place I'm going to use it. I think you're going to find that you get a lot of great usable tones with the whole range of the breadth of the tone control.
Say that one more time, Tal.
It also reacts with the volume control of the guitar very well.
Nice. Can we hear it at its most ferocious? right, cool.
The cool thing about this, once again, way huge, 119.95.
Sweet.
It's a CM95, Clyde McCoy 95.
Oh, that's right.
And what we've done here is kind of gone back to the kind of the early pages of wah-wah. We've removed the front end buffer, which actually gives you a nice sort of the more the bell type tones from your guitar, because it's kind of loading down like an old amplifier. It sees an old lower impedance, and it sweetens up some of that higher register so that when you do step on the toe down, it doesn't get as screechy. Some guys love that screechiness and cutting through. Others are a little more bluesy. It gets that warm sound. You know, it's a flavor.
Or if you're playing a Telecaster or whatever.
If you're playing a Telecaster, you don't want to kill the people in the front row.
Now, with it's early, and I'm trying to wake up the guitar geek part of my brain. Now, the Clyde McCoy original wahs had like the phasal inductors, right?
Actually, this one, no, and going back even further, this has the halo inductor. And the reason why they call it a halo inductor is because it's a cup core inductor, and the two halves of the core get attached to each other and kind of pinned together through a retainer ring that literally is a ring. So it looks like a halo is sitting over the inductor, hence halo inductor.
Is that what the early Clyde McCoys had?
Were, yeah. And the thing about the earlier ones, because the way it was made, and it had a lot of mechanical problems, and if you stepped on it, it would kind of vibrate, and it would cause some cool acoustical feedback, which is great, but it also could be a real noise machine. So we kind of struck the happy medium and engineered this so that it would breathe, but it wouldn't just go off on its own. So you got a kind of old world with just a little bit of, how should I put it, usability, because now the microphonic is held at bay to a point where it's usable at all. But yeah, it still has a liveliness. Also,
it does have the halo inductor.
It does have the halo inductor.
For guys who, I can't geek out on that. I mean, I know the names and stuff, but how would you contrast the sound difference between a halo and a phasal?
That's a good point. You know, inductors, it's a magnetic device, and they all have different magnetic characterizations, saturations, depending on how long you have it. It can even get DC bias.
Like every single component, even if it has the same spec.
Yeah, even the spec, because the way they wind it, it's such an organic thing of winding, and the distance between each wire, it'll be off like no matter how hard you control it, unless you hand wire and cut wire back and measure, cut wire and back, it's a plus or minus 20, sometimes 30, 40%. But then again, also age has a factor of it, and the domains that start to separate or be created in the core. It's really magical stuff. But the long and short of it is that the cup core actually is a system that will lend itself to more of that sort of dynamicness, even over the years too. So also coupled in with that older technology, we use all through-hole components, and big ones at that. So the tweaker can go in there and easily solder, change things. Yeah, exactly. So
cool. Well, let's hear this thing.
That's just the amp and the wah. There's no other pedals engaged. That's all the way up.
Yeah, it's definitely got a classic mellow sound.
yeah. So it's got a nice voice articulation, yet the high end is kind of tempered just because of the fact that the guitar is seeing it, and it really loves to be the guitar plugged into that.
Sounds nice. Now at the end there, Tal kicked on a Red Llama for a little overdrive. Thanks for doing that. It gave us a taste of clean and dirty. Bob, before we move to another type of board for like a cleaner amp, let's mention real quick the FET driver.
Yeah, the FET driver, aka FET driver, that's basically the old tried and true tube sort of overdrive system, but realized in FET technology. And once again, we nail the thing so that it's stable, and we also boost up the power supply in here so that we actually get a really nice big dynamic range, so it reacts more tube-like as well. And it's very simple, straightforward, low, high, overdrive, or the drive and the volume, and it just gives that nice overdrive sound but a good coloration without too much EQ. So your guitar to the amp, there's not a lot of things going on to muck it up, and so it's kind of nice, transparent but it also has a high cut, which is really usable because it then takes on a different tone with the high control. So it's almost like a high shift, so to speak. So now the tone, you can get a little more darker and more legato in singing. But
well, I think we heard this last year. It was the Joe Bonamassa signature model, but this is different aesthetics. Basically the same circuit, right?
It's a different packaging for people who
just want something plain.
Just want a plain thing, and it's affordable too.
How much is that going for, the FET driver?
So that's $149.99.
And we forgot the CM95.
Oh yeah, that's $199.99.
Cool. We've moved over to this other pedal board, which is designed for an amp that's set clean and to get all your dirt out of the pedal board. The amp is a Transatlantic 30 from Mesa Boogie.
Yep.
And we've got a stereo rig, but we've only got it mic'd mono. So, all right. So first up, we're going to take a look at the Phase 99, right? Which is really cool. Reinvention in a way of a classic for you guys.
Yeah, it's basically a classic, and putting two in one box.
Two Phase 90s.
Two Phase 90s in one box, yeah. It gives you a whole new way of modulation, whether it's one from the other or serial in or parallel. So you have a really cool split of modulation for stereo. You can still sum them up. Two different speeds or the same speed synchronized. My favorite setting right there is with you put them in parallel, and with two different settings, you have one slow and then one faster, and it gives you this really cool intermodulation. And it was inspired, by the work with Paul Gilbert, because he uses that setup with two actual discrete Phase 90s. So
I think if I remember right, way back in like the early 90s when I was geeking out on Eric Johnson hardcore, like on the song Highlandrons, I think he did something similar with two Phase 90s.
It's very possible. That I don't know. That's true.
I remember trying to reproduce it and I couldn't because
Well, the thing is that this is stereo as well, and obviously it's done splitting for you, one in and two out. But the cool thing is that if you run mono, you just unplug, and then it does the switching for you, and now you have a mono system, but you still have two phasers going. Right. So in order to do that, you'd have to rig up some cable or mixer board. So
it's got the standard speed and depth.
Yeah, basically really simple. It's got speed 1, speed 2 for each phaser. It has a sync button where it actually syncs the two phasers to one control, which is the control on the left. It has a script button, or we call vintage, where when it's in, it's got the more script. It's got the script sound out. It's got the block. The block is more aggressive. It's got the feedback term, so it's a little more in your face. And then the parallel serial button out on the upper left puts them in either parallel or serial. So, well, let's just give a listen.
Yeah, let's hear it. So that's bypassed. Series or parallel?
This is right now, it's parallel, and I can put one fast while the other's going slow. And then in series, one's going into the other, so it's that split of one fast and slow is a little more homogenized because each one feeds the other.
A little bit more spacey.
Yeah, well, it's a little more subtle, I think, as far as the two speeds are concerned.
Atmospheric.
But with that one, it just tends to pop out. Each speed is so independent because it's parallel and mixed, and it does its own thing.
And it's hard. I'm sure it's hard for people watching to get the full effect because we're a portable rig here. We're not equipped with a ton of channels and to do stereo miking and stuff. But trust me, it sounds cool.
Yeah, it is nice. And then again, if you want the more aggressive, see how that pops out? All the peaks start coming. And that's my favorite setting. It's musical, it's moving, it's dynamic, but it doesn't actually change your dynamics. This one has a little more of the newer school, really in-your-face dynamic, where the peaks are peakier.
Nice. How much is this going for?
So that's a very good question, and this is going for $169.99.
All right, Bob, next up is the Microamp Plus.
Yeah, the Microamp plus EQ. It's a really basic concept, and a lot of people have been asking for it for a while. And the cool thing about a Microamp is it's such simplicity in nature. Just one knob, 20-60 dB a gain, it hits your amp real hard, or it makes it for a smooth, clean lead because it doesn't add distortion. But with the bass and treble, and where we put those frequencies, it's very broad. So when you turn the bass up, it's not really concentrating on one little area. It's a very smooth bass bump, and same thing with the treble. So you can get a nice gradual shaping. When you turn up the volume on an amp, on the Microamp, you're boosting up the level. Now you may not need those highs as much as you did when it was at a lower level. Same, hence with the bass. So you're able to back that off a bit. Also with extreme settings, you can create like a mid bump or a mid scoop. And again, it's one of those things where it's kind of intuitive. You turn it up, and if you hear that the low end just got a bit too tubby, roll off the bass a bit. Actually, I like it with the bass a little bit bumped up and the treble bumped up. Then you start adding gain. So then it just brings out this bigger breath, depending on what you're doing. But it really gives a big fattening of chords and even single notes.
And it also seems like if you're the type of player who likes an amp that's on the verge of overdrive, you could use it as a boost for solos or overdrive. Exactly. But if you have a really clean rig, then you could almost just use it as a really simple EQ pedal instead of having a bunch of bands to mess with, and knobs are friendlier.
Exactly, and this is really, again, subtle, so you're not just, doing a very narrow band boost with, then it comes with a lot of phase shifting also with the frequency response. The other thing too, again, what you said is we should really have this on the distorted amp, but again, when you start raising the gain and just starting to overdrive the signal, you really probably going to need to bring the bass down so it doesn't get tubby. So, yeah.
Let's hear it.
Right now I have it about 10 dB a gain. Now if I back that off and boost the lows and the highs, it makes it louder, but now it takes a little bit of that mid-range out, sit in the mix. But if you're a real big fan, very simple. If I really like a lot of mid-range, and of course there's a cut and boost, so when I have it flat, it's just like a Microamp. So I may as well remove those knobs and you got it going with a straight out Microamp. True hardwire bypass too, and the list price on that is $119.95.
Sweet. Okay, next up is a reimagining of the Swollen Pickle from Way Huge.
Pickle. Yeah, actually, I love George's tweak abilities. I'm a tweaker myself, but his original Swollen Pickle, you had to open up the box to get it a lot of the control. So what he did was he just brought him to the outside, also shrunk it, which was very nice. So a little less real estate on the board, and it also is got the same circuitry, so it goes from that crazy, super saturated, over the top fuzz, where the jumbo sound, super dirt.
That sounds great, man.
So $149.99.
$149, okay.
Shrunken down, it's a great pedal.
Sweet. Next to that is, I love the finish on that La Machine. Tell us about the La Machine.
It is pretty, and it's a machine, all right. It's the old take on a Fuzz, all transistor circuitry, but it also has a secret weapon of adding the octave, so it's a doubler as well. So that Hendrixy high-end stuff that appears on a lot of his stuff when I was a kid. How did he get that? Well, stuff like that. And very simple to use, again, distortion, which is the gain, tone control, shaping the highs and lows, and output level, which has got plenty of output. You can get really over the crowd on this one. This has got a very nice output swing. And then just very simple single button octave switch. So let's just give it a listen. All that pretty little box through our wire bypass, $139.99.
All right, Bob, Tal, thank you so much for showing us all these. There's a lot of stuff, but I think it was a lot of fun. They sound great. Where can people go online to find out more about them?
Well, you know, you always go to premierguitar.com.
Thanks.
And you can also hit jimdunlop.com and see our new stuff and our videos, which are always keep you entertained and informed. Thank you.
Thanks, dudes. Sean Hammond with premierguitar.com. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you.